Let's start with the prayers. Om Bhadram Karnebhi Shruniyama Devaha Bhadram Pashe Makshabhiryajatraha Stirairangaihi Stuštuvagam Sastanubihi Vyashema Devahitam Yadayuho Swasti na Indro Vrittashravaha Swasti na Pusha Vishwavedaha Swasti nastakshorarishthanemihi Swasti no Brihaspati'r Dadato Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We are studying the Kaivalya Upanishad from Atharvana Veda. The objective of our study is to understand that our normal life which we lead is a life of bondage, a life of limitations to the body, mind, and the world. All Upanishads, they tell us you need to free yourself from this bondage and be a spiritual being. Live our current life as a spiritual being, unidentified with the body as the self, the mind as the self. So moksha and bandha are two prominent aspects of our study. The purpose of our study is to get away from moksha, get away from bandha, and go towards moksha. Moksha is a state of happiness. Moksha is a state of bliss. It can be lived by all human beings. That is the revelation of the Upanishads. So when we study these Upanishads, we must keep in mind, even though we are studying like an objective science, we must learn to apply it in our own self, which is what will transform us from Jiva Srishti to Ishwara Srishti. I am a human being, I need to become a spiritual being. This conversion will only take place when we apply the knowledge of the scriptures in our own life. No doubt, initially we have to study it like any other objective science. There is Atma, there exists Atma, so it is a Paroksha Jnana. There is a higher reality called Brahman. This is what is called as a knowledge of a distant thing. But that should not remain as a distant object to be realized, but it should become a subjective realization. The best way to climb these stairs of realization on a daily basis is to realize that I am Sakshi of all my thoughts which come in my mind. This should be a continuous practice throughout our study, throughout our journey. Whether we reach the ultimate goal or not, but this is not so difficult. And this is a very important exercise which I want to explain, because this will lead us to ultimate knowledge. There is nothing else in this universe which is a witness to the thoughts. Today I take the mind as myself. Instead of that, I should start living a life of witness, Sakshi. And then when we study these Upanishads, then they will become a reality. So step number one is start practicing Aham, I am Sakshi Swarupa. My real nature is Sakshi. Sakshi means what? It is without the body, without the mind, and without the world, I exist. That is a very important factor, and it should be a continuous thought throughout our living life. We have to start with the verse number 10 today. What we covered last week was in verse number 8, we said Ishwara has got Maya Shakti. Whenever we look at the world, we must remember there is a creator of this world. That creator is called as Ishwara. Now this Ishwara or God has got a power, and through which he creates this entire world, which consists of waking, dream, and sleep states for the individuals. So that was explained in verse number 8. In verse number 9, it was said that this Ishvara is an eternal phenomena. It is an eternal. It has got. It is an always there. Now we will study. We'll start the 10th verse, and these are very, very important verses in this Upanishad. And let us see how to chant this first.
Sarvabhutasthamaatmanam Sarvabhutani Chatmani Sampashyan Brahma Paramam Yati Nanyena Hetuna
Sarvabhutastamatmanam Sarvabhutani Chatmani. Very important line. Myself, my real nature in my Swarupam, which is called as the higher self, in that self, in that consciousness, awareness, all beings are in that self. The whole universe is in that self. Knowing this, one attains the highest Brahman. Sampashyan Brahma Paramam Yati Nanena Hetuna. Yati Nanena Hetuna means there is no other means of knowing this, knowing this self except by this method. This is a very important step in the realization. This is called as Sarvatma Bhava. That means I am the self in which everything exists. See, we are not talking of the body. Your body is limited. It is finite. It has a birth, it has a death. Here we are talking about the spiritual being, the consciousness me. That spiritual being, the consciousness self, is called as awareness principle, without which there is no other world. The whole world exists in this awareness, which is my own higher self. Not only this particular body is learning that now this is what is called as the reality. Everybody, all of us who are learning this text now, we must remember here we are talking about one common entity which exists in the entire universe. Jiva Jagat Ishwara Adhisthana. The substratum for the Triputi, Jiva, Jagat and Ishvara is this Brahman. It's called as Brahman in the Veda. And I have to realize that this reality is my real nature, not this body and mind. And what will I get if I do that? I will be free from any sorrow in life because I will not be identified with the body and mind, but I will be identified with the pure awareness. That is the essence of this verse, a very important verse. Sarva bhutastha atmanam. Chaitanyam, awareness, is inherent and through all bodies. See, we may study all this in a descriptive way like this, but when you apply it to yourself, it becomes very easy. The difference is very, very distinct when you apply it to yourself and say, aham, I am this awareness and consciousness in which all these beings, all the bodies come and go in the waking state. The dream state comes and goes. The sleep state comes and goes. In what? In awareness. That is what is the meaning. But here we are trying to objectively understand what is this consciousness. But we must remember, even though it is we study it like this, we must apply it to ourselves. Many people forget this and they just keep it like an objective science. The whole Gita study is done like that. Ultimately, we realize that I have not really changed much. I was the same and I am now the same after the study. Because our application is lacking. And only when we apply, we will have doubts. Then we clear the doubts. When the doubts are cleared from the mind becomes pure. That pure mind will reflect the knowledge that I am the awareness principle. Sarvabhutastha atmanam sarvabhutani chatmani ikshate yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadarshanaha. This is an exact copy of the verse which we are now seeing in verse number 10. Bhagavad-Gita, 6th chapter, the 29th verse. Same idea. You can see how Bhagavad-Gita has taken the essence of the Upanishads. Sarvo Upanishado Gavo. It is that essence which is there in the Gita. Whatever we are learning here in the Upanishad is reflected there. Ishavasya Upanishad, Yastu Sarvani Bhutani Atmanyeva Anupashyati Sarvabhuteshu Chatmanam Tatho na Vijukutsate. Same idea. He who sees everything in himself and himself in everything never hates anybody. There will be no jealousy at all when we realize our spiritual existence. You will never be jealous of anybody. You say, okay, everybody is in the same reality. What should I be jealous of what? Mattha parataram nanyat kinchit asti dhananjaya mai sarvamidam proktam sutre manigana eva. The 7th chapter, the 6th chapter, so it is a 7th chapter, 7th verse. There is nothing whatsoever. All these are strung in me like pearls, like beads in the pearl, beads in the thread. Sutre manigana eva. So in the thread of Brahman or awareness, all the whole world is existing. That is how Lord Krishna presents it. Punyo gandha prithivyam cha tejas chasmi vibhavasau jivanam sarvabhuteshu tapaschasmi tapasvishu. I am the sweet fragrance in the earth. I'm the brilliance in the fire. The life in all beings, and I am austerity in the austere. See here, Lord Krishna says, I am the life in all beings. What is the meaning of the life in all beings? I am the consciousness principle in all the beings. And how is this consciousness principle? It is reflected consciousness. So the bodies are like flowers threaded together in consciousness. And this consciousness principle, it is an antaryami principle. Antaryami is a word used in Mandukya Upanishad for Ishwara. Antaryami means it is the inner self, inner Lord, the controller. Sarva Bhutani cha Atmani. These are all words from this sentence, from this verse. Atma is the substratum, the adharam for all things and beings. See, this is the way we understand the spiritual nature. Many times, the pure consciousness is compared in the Upanishads with space. Now, normally in the first stage of our understanding, when we say space is in the room, or there is space in a jar of 1 liter, 5 liter space, 10 liter space, 50 liter space, we say there is space inside the pot, or inside the jar, or inside the room. That is the first stage. Then, when our mind starts to think properly, rationally, then what it will understand is there is space outside the room, there is space outside the jar, outside the pot, and there is space inside the pot. There are 2 spaces. My eyes are seeing 2 spaces, but actually speaking, what happens when the pot breaks? Or when I remove the walls from my room, the space inside the room and the space outside, they merge and become 1 space. So at that time, at all times, actually, were there 2 spaces or was there only 1 space? It was only 1 space which appeared as 2. Small room, big room, small jar of 5 liters, big jar of 50 liters. So similarly, consciousness, initially we say there is consciousness in the body. That consciousness is the Sakshi. That consciousness is the Antaryami. It is, Atma is within the body. It is the first stage of our study. Because initially we don't know about this Atma. We don't know that there is a Sakshi, there is a witness for all our thoughts. We think that my mind is me and the body is me. And I am this body and mind, and I am experiencing the world. That is our normal perception. This is how we will see the world always, with or without the knowledge. But in the second stage, what happens is we realize through the study of the Upanishads that all bodies are in consciousness. It is not that the consciousness is in the body, but bodies are in consciousness. Consciousness is one indivisible reality. There is no second consciousness. That is why it is called as non-dual or Advaitam. Our whole philosophy is based on this word Advaitam. When you want to reach freedom from the body, we have to remember one word, Advaitam. At the highest level, Advaitam, the word Advaitam gives us the freedom from these limitations of the body and mind. So this is Sarva Bhutani cha Atmani. Swarupashya. Swarupashya means what? Not seeing through the Golakam, but clearly seeing through the eye of knowledge. Like I said before, my eyes will still perceive duality. Waking will come, there'll be duality perceived. Dream will come, duality will be perceived. In sleep state, there is no duality, but I exist. That pure existence in the sleep state is my real nature. Seeing is doubtless knowledge. This is what is called as seeing. When we analyze these verses and I apply it to myself, then what happens? I see the truth of pure awareness in my own self, in my own cave of the intellect. I can see the truth. In my own mind, I must be able to recognize this Brahman. As what? As ever evident consciousness. I always exist as this principle. But I have to go so deep to understand my real self. I have to cross over the three states. I have to cross over the three bodies. I have to cross over the time and space principle and then realize what is the truth. It is not nothingness or blankness when you reach that state. It is what is called as pure existence, pure knowledge. Param Brahmayati, the knower of Brahman is one with Brahman. Knowledge helps me to drop the misconception that I am the jiva. I am an individual body-mind complex. The division between me and the whole universe, which is what is called as God, that difference, which is called as Bheda Bhranti Nivritti. It is only an intellectual concept that there is something called as a world. In reality, what exists is this pure Brahman alone. That is why this is called as Kaivalya Upanishad. One attains oneness with absolute Brahman by removing the internal darkness caused by ignorance. Our buddhi is a cave. A cave has got darkness inside. That darkness of a cave is compared to the dark ignorance in our mind. How does this ignorance go away? The ignorance goes away when we light the knowledge of the Upanishad. When I study the Kaivalya Upanishad, that light is ignited in my buddhi. And then I become aware of my real self. Oh, this is what the Upanishad wants me to realize. Once that awareness comes that that is my real nature, then it is possible to abide in that as the Sakshi throughout our life. It's a very brilliant verse. All the leading acharyas of Vedanta, they always say Sarvabhuta, Sarvatma Bhava is extremely important, and this verse in Kaivalya Upanishad is a very important verse from that teaching angle. The next verse is a verse which will teach us how do I realize this Sarva Bhutasta Atmanam, Sarva Bhutani Atmani. How do I realize this? Is there a method? You say, okay, you go internally and inside the cave of your intellect, you will be able to realize. But how? The next verse teaches us the method of realizing the reality.
Atmanamaranim krutva Pranavam chottaranim प्रणवं चोत्तरारणिम् ज्ञाननिर्मथनाभ्यासात् पाशं दहति पंडितः पाशं दहति पंडितः.
So this verse is a verse which teaches us how to meditate on the self. A technique is given here, and in the olden times, the students were used to Yagashala, where they used to burn, where they used to do a lot of Agni Devata rituals. So they used to kindle fire in the Homa Kunda by rubbing two wooden pieces. And in between, they used to keep cotton, and the cotton will get ignited when you rub two pieces of wood. Due to friction, the fire is ignited. Now, similarly, what the Upanishad tells is, in our own mind, you assume that my mind, which is the lower wood, arani, you keep that constantly, you keep it without any movement. And then the upper arani, that means the upper wooden piece, which is the consciousness, which is on top of this mind, you keep on churning it. What happens is, when I use the Vedantic statements, the upper arani is nothing else but it is the description of the higher reality. For example, I keep on meditating on the word Om, which is the ultimate reality. And I keep on remembering all things connected with the Om. Then what happens? My mind, the mind is now held steady, the bottom harani, and the top arani is contemplating on the higher self through the words of the scriptures. When this happens, what they say is intuition comes in. The mind gets ignited to a higher reality. It gets the strength, the power to realize the higher truth, which is Brahman. And when this happens, all the cords of bondage, that means there is an I which was connected to the body and mind, and it kept on saying, I am this body, I am the self, I am this mind. When this I, the small I, the ego I, gets the vision of the higher I, it will loosen up, it will burn up all its connection with this body and the mind, and it will say, I am that pure self. This is the whole process of Vedanta. See, in one verse, the Upanishad is able to convey such a huge amount of knowledge, such an intense meaning is there in this verse. Let's see it. How to meditate on Brahman? What is the technique? Atma Vichara is done through Shastra Vichara. Whenever we want to do who am I, don't try to understand, keep on repeating, let me understand who am I, who am I, who am I, who am I. You cannot get the final answer. Some people think that just by sitting down, they will be able to understand their self and closing their eyes. It's not true. According to the Upanishads, we must use the Upanishadic verses. Whatever the Upanishads describes the self, let your mind dwell on it. Atma Vichara is done through Shastra Vichara. You cannot directly look into Atma. Atma is Nitya. I will tell you how it is done towards the end of this verse. So Mukha Darshanam is through Darpana Darshanam. I want to see my face. I can go around the whole world, but I won't be able to see the face unless until I bring a mirror in front. So what is the mirror? The mirror will reflect my nature. It will show the contours of my face. I've got a pretty face. I'm very, very handsome, beautiful. So similarly, when I take the Shastra, Shastra means what? The Upanishads, or the Bhagavad-Gita, or the Brahma Sutra. When I use this as a mirror, and then whatever the mirror is now depicting as the self, I acknowledge that is my real nature. It's very easy. When you try to apply this into our own self, it's quite an easy thing. Mundak Upanishad says, Jiva is the arrow to be shot. Use the Shastra bow. And then the Jivas will hit the target, which is Brahman. So Jiva becomes one with Brahman. When my mind travels, when my thoughts travel towards that ultimate reality, a time will come when the thoughts will drop and I will merge with that truth. That Sakshi I will merge. And in that Sakshi, there is nothing, there is no difference, there is no Bheda. That is why it is called as Advaitam, as the ultimate substratum for the entire universe. Even though I am sitting down and meditating on my nature, the Upanishad says your nature and the nature of Ishwara, which is the whole universe, ultimately they are one reality. Kathopanishad uses the example of chariot. That means a jiva is a charioteer in this body. And the destination is what? You are going through this body to arrive at Paramatma, that pure self. In Vedanta, the purpose of the study of Upanishad is to reach the purpose of birth itself, is to know that I am the ultimate reality behind this entire universe. Gita says, Ethedamsi Samidogni Bhasmasat Kurute Arjuna Jnanagni Sarva Karmani Bhasmasat Kurute Tatha. Like a blazing fire reduces all the ghee which you put in, all the butter, all the other fuel which you put in the fire in a homakunda, the fire will burn everything. So similarly, this knowledge of the reality will burn all our past sanchita karma, and I will be free from future identifications with any body, which whenever it is born, or I am free. So the fire of knowledge burns all the shackles of bondage. This is just a chart to compare the fire as well as the knowledge. There are four points. Just why we compare fire and knowledge to be similar. Fire is produced by churning. Knowledge is produced by churning the Shastric statements. Aham Brahmasmi, I am Atma Brahma. These are all statements. The second point is a fire burns all the fuel. Agni will destroy darkness and give us light. Similarly, what happens to knowledge? Knowledge burns down our bondage, our samsara. I will not be so much attached to this world as I was before. Fuel is Atma Swarupa Jnanam. That is, Atma Swarupa Ajnanam is the fuel. Ahamkara and karmas are the fuel. Now what happens when Jnanam comes, it will destroy this samsara. So with the knowledge of the scriptures, with the words of the scriptures, I will be able to remove the ignorance in my buddhi. Fire removes darkness which is covering the objects even though they are existing. For example, if the room is not lighted, then what happens? The whole room is not visible to me. The objects are not visible to me. Similarly, in my intellect, if my intellect has got ignorance, then I will not be able to see the Atma in my intellect, that Sakshi principle. The light removes the darkness. The knowledge of the scriptures will remove the darkness of the intellect. The darkness which covers the object, they are as good as non-existent if it is covered. So the Atma which is covered now with the ignorance is as good as non-existent. But it becomes existent only when I study. Only the scriptures, that is the purpose of the study of the scriptures. The benefit is what? The benefit is, whatever is the benefit of the study, we don't derive if we don't apply that knowledge. So what is the benefit of lighting up? I start seeing the world of objects clearly. When this knowledge comes in, what happens to my knowledge in the intellect? I start seeing that this world is coming and going. This world is manifest during a particular time, and it is unmanifest at another time. Waking comes, the world is manifest. When my mind is awake, I see the world. When the mind is sleeping, the world becomes unmanifest. When do I realize this? Only after the study. And when I study the source of this phenomena called as the world, I own up that pure consciousness awareness. Then what happens? What is the benefit I get out of it? Parama Shanti, absolute peace. There is no other peace in the world except what I can get from my own Swarupam. Swarupam means my nature. I claim that as myself. I am peace by itself. I don't have to run for peace in the world. We think that I will be happy if I do this in the world. But that is only temporary happiness. So this is a diagram which tells you about the meditation process. I said you keep the lower arani, the mind, as the mind, and the Shastra Vakyas as the upper arani. So when you bring the two aranis together, the two logs together, a cotton is kept in the center and that burns. Cotton represents our intellect, which gets ignited. Then we keep the mind constant and we churn the thoughts of Atma. This light is ignited, which is the light of Atma. A sacred fire for yajnas is produced by churning two logs called aranis. And when there is a friction, sparks are generated. Cotton, which is kept in the center, gets ignited. Now this cotton, the fire, is then used in the ritual because this is a pure fire. The purity of fire comes when we get fire in this way. Of course, nowadays we use for yajnas and all, we just use a matchstick and then we go ahead. But in the olden days, this is how fire was generated. A student's mind is the lower arani. It should be kept steady. It should not keep on moving into the world. So when I sit in meditation, I should first of all try to remain calm. Don't shake the body. Because the body, when it shakes, what happens? My mind also starts moving. So I, first of all, stabilize the body, stabilize the breath, keep my mind calm. Tell the mind, for the next 10 minutes, I am going to meditate on Atma. So the lower arani is the ego I, the mind, which says I in this body. And it is this I which keeps on going around the world. So thoughts of body, mind, and world are in the lower arani. And that is what is called as samsara. Now that you're trying to control, this is what is called as shama, controlling the mind. Dhamma means controlling the sense organs. So before you start meditation, you close all your eyes, you close your ears, and don't allow any other external perceptions to take place. Then what happens? Then you realize that that is what I'm realizing is reflected consciousness. And what is the upper arani? Upper arani is the sakshi. It is the higher principle. It is ever the witness, never changing. What is changing is the thoughts in the mind. This changeless awareness, consciousness is the upper arani, which is what I bring into my mind. I say this is the nature of my real self. Then you bring in the words like nityaha. You know, we studied a few characteristics and few indicators earlier. Even in the last verse, we said sarvatma bhava. All those things you bring into your mind in this state. Nitya means I am eternal. Nirvikara means this sakshi is not having any modifications. Body has modification, stula sharira. That is no problem. That will, I'm not identified with that. Sukshma shariram is the mind. That also has a lot of vikaras. Vikaras means it keeps on changing. I learned to drop that. I am ajaha. Ajaha means unborn. This consciousness, awareness, is not born. It is always there. That is why it is called as nitya. It is always existing, beginningless, anadi. And what is the nature of that? The nature is, it will illumine whatever the thoughts are there in my mind, it will illumine that. The thought of the wall comes, it will illumine. Thought of a tiger comes, it will illumine. If a thought of my mother comes, it will illumine. If a thought of my office comes, it will illumine. All the thoughts get illumined by this Chaitanya. This Chaitanya is the original consciousness. It is not the reflection in the thought. In the thought, when this mind, consciousness comes in, it is called as reflected consciousness. The jiva. But the jiva, instead of attaching to the thought, now says, I am that pure consciousness. Aham Brahma Asmi. I am that pure reality. That is the transformation. That is what is called as moksha. Very, very beautiful verse. It's a very direct method Upanishad teaches of how to meditate, and it is possible to use this as a good technique in meditation. Try it out. I'm sure you will succeed. Next verse.
Saeva maya parimohitatma. Saeva maya parimohitatma. Shariramastaya karoti sarvam. Shariramastaya karoti sarvam. Stri annapanadi vichitra bhogaihi. अन्नपानादिविचित्रभोगैः स एव जाग्रत्परितृप्तिमेति स एव जाग्रत्परितृप्तिमेति.
So from the level of the highest reality, which if I know I am that, how come I am experiencing the world and I fall into bondage? That is now what is being explained. Upanishad tells me I have a higher nature, which is Atma. Because my mind has not got used to it, if my mind has got used to it, then I will remain as Atma and I can live the world. I can live the world free. In this verse, from now on, the Upanishad will tell us, it will come to our level and tell us that you have fallen from the highest, now you are coming down. How does this happen? Because you get deluded. The self is deluded by Maya. Maya means Prakriti. Prakriti means three gunas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. For those who have done the Bhagavad-Gita with me, you will remember the 14th chapter. All the things which you've learned in the 14th chapter, you should try to bring it here. So because of that Maya, Maya means the power of the mind to get attached to the body and to the world. That is the Maya Shakti. That is the power in this body. So the body is doing all the actions. Action means what? It is perceiving, it is feeling, it is thinking. So the body is doing all these actions, but I am not that. I am not those actions. It appears in the waking state, it is this jiva who reaches full gratification. That means what? In the waking state, the whole waking state for all of us is only for one reason. The body acts and enjoys. That is the only purpose we know. We enjoy the objects of the world like food, like drinks, like different sceneries. So many things are there. That is what is in this verse. So from this verse, we start what is called as Vedanta Shastra Vichara. The 12th verse is talking about the waking state. We are doing the Avastha Trayam Vichara. That means we are going to study the same thing what we study in the Mandukya Upanishad. In this Upanishad, we are going to study it in 3 verses. 12, 13 and 14 describe the 3 states. And then the 15th verse will teach us the 2 aspects of creation, Vyashti and Samashti. From the 16th verse to the 22nd verse, we are going to study the oneness between the Vyashti and Samashti. That means the individual and the total, there is only oneness. That is what is called as Mahavakya Vichara. Oneness with the Paramatma. And in the 23rd verse, we are going to study Jnana Phalam. What is the benefit of this study? And in the 24th verse, the Upanishad says, in case you don't have that phalam or the benefit of this study this Upanishad again. You will get this phalam one day. Second time you get it, you don't get the benefit, study the third time. Repeated study of this Upanishad will give you the ultimate result called moksha. That is what the Kaivalya Upanishad says. The verse number 6 gave us the Characteristics of Atma. Consciousness is one, all pervading, indivisible, infinite, eternal Atma. Even though Atma is one, but it manifests in the medium of waking state in two ways. We'll see in what way it manifests. See, for example, if you take electricity, it is one. But then in a small bulb, it will be dull, feeble light. In a big bulb, it's like 100 watts bulb or 1,000 watts bulb in a stadium, it will be bright. So the medium of the bulb, whether it is a 10-watt bulb or a 1,000-watt bulb, that will be different. The experience, the light will be different. But the electricity, which is the common thing between both the bulbs, which is the power behind the bulb, is one. So similarly, one phase, this is a second example. There are three examples here, and then we will see what is consciousness. So one phase without distortions. If you look on the left-hand side in a concave mirror, it will appear. Concave mirror, you must have studied in physics and in your science. It will appear small, it will appear in a different shape. Suppose it is a convex mirror. My own face will look different. So the two different mirrors are responsible for two different distortions. Let us look at the third example. Water. Water appears as a wave. Water appears as an ocean. As a wave, it is called as an effect. What is the cause? Cause is ocean. Associated with a single Namarupa, that means with a small size, you call it a wave. The same thing when it is associated with a large mass of water, it is called as ocean. So water, electricity, consciousness, it all is, was, will be, it will remain the same, but the name and form will keep on changing, which is the wave, the bulb, the body. They have arrival and departure. Consciousness doesn't arrive, it doesn't depart. That is my true self. See how simple examples are used for realizing the ultimate truth. Atma is one. Nirupadikam. Nirupadikam means without upadi, without the medium of the body or mind or the world. It is called as Brahman or Atma. There it is neither karanam or karyam. It is neither a cause, neither an effect. It is alone is. What happens to that pure Atma? When we see it with the help of an individual body, the reflection is called as Jivatma. When we see the same Atma, the light of consciousness, in the whole universe, in a bigger medium, in a bigger reflected medium, it is called as Paramatma. Vyashti is Jivatma, individual, Karyam. Samashti is Karanam, Paramatma. The Vyashti, the individual, will have Nikrishta Gunaha, inferior properties. The Paramatma will have Utkrishta Gunaha, superior properties, superior aspects. It has got bigger power, bigger knowledge, bigger, it can do anything. So when this individual body, mind gets the status of a Jivatma, it is called as, it is what is called as the Jagrat Avastha. It is the same consciousness. When it is available as a total, it is called as Paramatma. Macro. Macro, prapancha, we call it prapancha. Now, the individual has got avidya, means ignorance. It is covering the nature of the Jivatma as the pure consciousness. In the case of Paramatma, it is Maya Shakti which covers his nature. But for the Ishvara, there is no covering because that Maya Shakti has got three gunas: Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Ishvara is Sattva Pradhana. Sattva Pradhana means what? It is knowledge oriented. It knows itself. What about Jiva? Jiva is Rajo Pradhana, Tamo Prabhadana. Tamo Pradhana means what? Always deluded. Throughout our life, we are deluded beings. We live as a deluded being. I am this body, I am the mind. I am the body, I am the mind. I am acting, I am suffering, I am doing this, I am doing that. All this is because of wrong identification. So inferiority and superiority belongs to body-mind instrument, not to the pure consciousness which illumines this whole Jagat. Jagat means whatever is perceived by the sense organs is called as Jagat. The consciousness is the spiritual essence behind the Jagat. It is the essence behind this living inert body. And by itself, it is neither a cause, neither an effect. This body is made up of small Panchabhutas, which is the effect of the Maha Panchabhutas, which is the cause. But light of consciousness is not the Mahabhutas, it is an eternal light of Chaitanya. So that Chaitanya, when it is associated with the small Upadhi is the Jiva. When it is associated with the higher Upadhi means it is a means, it's a medium. It is called as Paramatma. So instead of identifying with the medium of the body, I learned to say I am the pure consciousness. That pure consciousness is neither the Jivatma or Paramatma. That is the essence of this verse. This is a very important verse. These are all technical verses. It explained to us technically how to unravel the essence in us. Sa eva maya parimohitatma. Atma, when it is entrapped or enclosed within the body, mind complex, is deluded by Maya. All our thoughts are delusions, except the thought of Shastra. All our thoughts. I'm sitting down here, I suddenly start thinking of London, I suddenly start thinking, and then I attach myself to that, and then I get deluded, and my whole life goes on like this. Tamas, all thoughts are, the cause of that is Tamoguna. Tamoguna ends up in misapprehension of the reality. You start projecting. Instead of saying, I am the pure consciousness, I am always free, I am always living, I am always existing, I start seeing myself in that mind. Original consciousness is called as OC. Now I am going to explain to you the chart, just in the chart form, so that the mind starts understanding these two, Jivatma, Paramatma. Jivatma has one original consciousness. It has got a reflected consciousness and a reflecting media called the mind. Paramatma has the original consciousness. It also has a reflected consciousness called the second one, RC2, and reflecting medium, which is RM2. In my meditation, I have to just learn to drop all this and say, I am the pure self. I am not the Jiva, I am not the Paramatma, I am the pure Chaitanya. Parimohitatma, Atma means here mind. Parimohitatma, mind, the deluded mind. Maya means ignorance. Ignorance of what? Ignorance of my real nature as pure consciousness. Because of that ignorance, I get deluded. Through this study, what happens? I learn to remove that ignorance. The mind, instead of claiming I am consciousness with body, becomes deluded because of the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. And then it says, I am the body and mind. You see, because of that power, Shakti of Maya Shakti in this body, the mind projects thoughts. And then it wants to acquire things in the world. So because of ignorance, ajnanam, it causes desires, kama vritti. And because of ignorance, the vrittis are formed, ichha vrittis are there, and then my body acts, yatate. Ajnanam leads to rajoguna, and then we are in the samsara. So the three gunas are what? Rajo guna, tamo guna, and sattvic guna. Sattvic guna, if you develop more and more, I will be free. That is why we say chant Vishnu Sahasranamam, chant Gayatri Japam, chant all this, so that the mind becomes pure. Mind learns to become not rajasic or tamasic, but learns to keep quiet. I am the consciousness in the body, mind complex. If this knowledge comes in, then it is easy to say, I am not the body mind. Satchidananda Swarupam. This is given from Taittiriya Upanishad. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. What is that? I am the pure existence. Satyam. Satyam means it's always there. Always there. I am always there. That is the feeling for all of us, right? You were there earlier. You were there at birth. You are there at you're 5 years old. You are 10 years old. Now also you exist. So existence is my real nature. Pure existence. And then knowledge. Every time I say I am conscious, this conscious never goes away. So instead of thinking I am the body, I must get this, you start saying I am the Atma, I am the Sakshi, I am the pure consciousness. Then what will happen? Your grip on the body and the grip on the mind will loosen up, and a day will come when your misconception, the Vikshepa Shakti, which is the cause of the wrong notion, that will be burnt by this knowledge of Atma. I am not the container body, the deha, but I am the content consciousness. That knowledge will start growing in you, in your own intellect. Shariram asthaya. This asthaya means what? This Atma identified with the body gives the biodata of the body as its own biodata. And it says that I'm getting old, I'm suffering these various emotions, and so on. Doesn't say I'm nirgunam, satyam, jnanam, anantam, brahma. It doesn't say that. See, instead of saying that I am the pure Atma, it keeps on identifying with the body-mind complex. Sarvam karoti. It does all the actions in the world. We do different types of actions, laukika actions and shastriya actions. Shastriya actions means prashchita karma, nitya karma, naimitya karma, all that. And you become what? Karta. And when you become a karta, what happens? You see, these are all the delusions. Sarvam karoti means it is a deluded mind which thinks I am the actor. Instead of saying I am the Atma, it says I am the actor. And once you become karta, automatically you become the bhokta. Bhokta means what? You become an enjoyer. A person who cooks, he cooks to eat the food, consume the food, not to frame a picture. So in this world, the enjoyments through husband, wife, children, these are all examples. Through food, through drinks, these are all what is called as bhoga vishaya. Saha paritripti eti. These are all temporary pleasures born out of contact between the sense organs and the sense objects. Bhagavad-Gita, the second chapter, says, Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna sukhadukkada agama paino nityaha tam titikshasva bharata. So, what does this verse say? It says that all the enjoyments which are born in our waking state, when our body is identified with the world, our sense organs are going out and contacting the sense objects, whether it is food or scenery or anything. It is only the five sense organs, like good music. Now, all these are impermanent. Whether it is joy or whether it is sorrow, they are impermanent. So the Bhagavad Gita says, learn to abide, learn to bravely face them, because they are not going to remain permanent. Endure them. If you can't solve a problem, endure. That's what it says in the Bhagavad Gita. As an Atma, I am akarta, abhokta. So with this knowledge of Atma, I claim the pure self as my real state. How can I see the three states? How do I try to understand these three states? Like in the olden days, we had a VCR. You know, VCR means a cassette recorder, where you record all the experiences. You record in a, you have a cassette and you record a music. Suppose you're singing, you want to record it. For example, today you have a mobile. You can record your voice. That is what is called as a recorder. Now, when you record that, it is called as the waking state. Suppose the same mobile, you're playing it, replaying that recorded voice which you had, the song you're playing it and showing it to your friends. That is what is called as the Swapna state. Replaying whatever was recorded in before, that is what is called as the dream state. Suppose you don't record or don't play back, it is in the sleep mode. That is what is called as the sleep state. So these are the three states of the mind. We must learn to say, when the mind is there, awake, I see the experience the world. That means what? The world of perceptions is there. Ultimately, where is it? Is it really outside? No, it is in your mind. That is how God created this whole universe. It's called as Ishwara Srishti. It is all happening as though outside, but actually it is the Jnanam, Jnayam, and the three, Jnata, Jnanam, Jnayam. That means the known objects, the knower subject, and the knowing instrument is what is experiencing the world. And every day, the jiva is traveling through this waking, dream, and sleep, waking, dream, and sleep. And not only in one body, it again takes up another body. That is what is called as samsara. So the jiva doesn't understand that this is what is happening, and he suffers continuous problems throughout the life. And through the Arani Mathanam, we just saw how to drop these three states of the mind and be one with the consciousness. I learned to drop this samsara, this sharira trayam, and accept the nitya mukta avastha of the Atma, ever free. It is temporarily caught up in a shariram. It is a reflection which I am experiencing, and this is not my original state. That is the essence of this verse. This verse very beautifully explains avastha trayam. It explains to me that the three states which the mind goes through is not the real self. I create a dream world and dream body for myself, and I become identified with the dream body and mind, and then I become a creature in the dream world and a jiva in the dream world. Now, this is a fall from the waker status. I am actually waker sleeping in the bed. But what happened to my mind? My mind went for a toss. It started dreaming. I became a dreamer, and then I suffering in the dream. This is the lower. It is you're gone from one realm of experience to another realm of experience. Similarly, in waking, what happens? Why jiva is helpless? Because it feels that it is controlled, it is jailed, it is living in a prison of the body and mind. It is feeling that it is living in the world surrounded by the three gunas, which is actually, it is only prakriti, it is only nature. You may ask a question, can I say that all my life it is only nature? Yes, it is true. That's what it says here in the Gita or in the Upanishads. It is only Rajas and Tamo Pradhana Jiva, which is connected with the body and mind. And it becomes a slave to the Upadhi, gets confused, becomes an individual, tyrannized individual, carried away by the mind. So instead of using the body and mind as an instrument and become an Ishwara, instead of becoming a controller, I fall down. Ishwara, what is the status of Ishwara, the Lord? Lord is one who lives in the Jagat, surrounded by the three gunas, but the Lord is Sattva Pradhana. He knows his nature, knowledge. He knows that I am manifest in a macro medium. I am the master of the macro upadhi, but I am free from the upadhi because of knowledge. This is exactly what the Upanishad wants the jiva to do. Today we are caught up and saying, identifying with the body and say that we are suffering. By the knowledge, you learn to come out of this identification and claim your freedom. So that is what is the jiva. Mandukya Upanishad gives different names for these jiva. In three different states, it gives three names. I will just briefly explain to you the three. This is what I'm describing. These are all chart. This chart is from Mandukya Upanishad. But it is very useful to understand this because it gives you in a synopsis what is the waking state, dream state, and sleep state. Jiva Ishwara Aikya. You see, I want to learn how to become one with that reality. That is the purpose of my study of these three states. That original consciousness is called as the reality, or it is called as Brahman. Now, the jiva is shown on the left hand side. Now, this is the way I have to analyze all my experiences of this world. This world, the Vyashti means individual jiva, left hand side. Samashti means Ishwara, which is the total. Vyashti, in the Samashti, the Vyashti is also there, you see, but we are separating it because today I am identified with the individual body. Now, the three names which are given, because I want to reach that pure consciousness, I want to do the inquiry. I want to sit down, close my eyes, I want to understand that pure consciousness. So what the Upanishad does is, it gives names to Ishvara and Jiva as per the realms of consciousness. In the gross body, in the waking state, this is one realm of our experience. In the waking state, the jiva, which is identified with the gross body. See, in the waking state, are we identified with the mind alone? No. We experience the body. My eyes are seeing the gross body. And then my sense organs are operating in the world. So that time I am called as Vishwa. Try to remember these names, remember this, so that when we do different Upanishads, the same names will be used in different Upanishads. In the waking state, the individual consciousness, the consciousness in an individual body is called as Vishwa. And the same consciousness in the totality is called as Virat. So this is the waking state. Vishwa is interacting with the Virat. The gross body is interacting with the gross world. The reflected consciousness in the individual body is interacting with the reflected consciousness in the world. Okay, so this is clear. Now we go to a subtle world, a second realm. The second realm is called as Taijasa in the individual subtle body, and it is called as Hiranyagarbha in the total. So whenever I look at the dream state, I should remember it consists of Taijasa interacting with the Hiranyagarbha. In all this, you'll always have reflections of the consciousness, because without that, that state doesn't exist at all. That is how you should realize. I am the consciousness, which is now appearing as the gross body, which is now appearing as the dream body, which is now appearing as the sleeping body. In the three states, I'm given different names. In the sleep state, what happens? I get the name Prajna. And which body I'm attached to? Karana Sharira, causal body. Because Upanishad clearly tells me, Tattvada tells me, I consist of three things, five things in fact. Three bodies, two reflections, one reflection and one original consciousness. Gross body, subtle body, causal body. Reflected consciousness, original consciousness. That is the totality of the jiva. The same thing is there in the totality, in the samashti also. In the samashti, it is called as Ishvara. Gross prapancha, subtle prapancha, and causal prapancha. So if this chart is understood, what is the nature of myself or the nature of Ishvara without the medium of the bodies? That is what is called as Brahman. That is what is called as original consciousness. If you are able to meditate on this chart, you don't require any other Upanishad, you don't require any other teaching. This chart itself will give you the moksha. This chart is very powerful. It gives you the essence of the Kaivalya Upanishad. It gives you the essence of Mandukya Upanishad. Essence of all Upanishad is there in this, because ultimately you're saying Jiva Ishwara Aikyam, oneness between Jivatma and Paramatma. How do I get this oneness? Only when I ask this question and my mind dwells in this way. No other way. There is no other way for understanding the truth behind this body. Who am I? What is this world? Who is the creator? This is the method. This is the chart to be used. This is the same thing which has been culled out from this Mandukya. It has got some additional names and it has got some meditation in the form of Om. What Mandukya Upanishad says is, it gives additional. You see, here I have not, in the previous chart, I did not talk about any meditation. Here in Mandukya Upanishad, it says, the Om letter has got 3 syllables, A, O, Ma. A you use for the waking state, O you use for the dream state, Ma you use for the sleep state. When you chant Om, let this whole knowledge of Vishwa, Virat, Prajna, Ishwara, Prajna, Hiranyagarbha, all these names which I have used before, all that should come. Taijasa, Hiranyagarbha, Prajna, Ishwara, in 3 realms. I bring Om, the sound Om represents the 3 manifested world. And then what lies beyond that silence is called as the ultimate Amatra. Amatra is called as Atman, Brahman, Turiyam. Okay, so I have introduced now a chart which will explain what we have studied in the 12th mantra and what we will be studying in the 13th and the 14th. Let me take one more mantra today.
स्वप्ने स जीवः सुख दुःख भोक्ता स्वप्ने स जीवः सुख दुःख भोक्ता स्वमायया कल्पित जीवलोके स्वमायया कल्पित जीवलोके सुषुप्तिकाले सकले विलीने सुषुप्तिकाले सकले विलीने तमोभिभूतः सुखरूपमेति तमोभिभूतः सुखरूपमेति
Swapne sa jivaha sukha dukkha bhokta. The same self, which is the same individual I, ego I, when in the waking state, it is called as the waker or Vishwa. The same waker enters the dream state. Sukha dukkha bhokta, enters and enjoys the dream state. How? Swamayaya kalpida jiva loke. Swamayaya. It is not Ishwara's Maya. It is now its own Maya. It has got a power. The Jiva has a power. This is how we should understand. The power in this body is the same as the power in the Ishwara, in the total. Ishwara is able to project the whole world. I am able to project a dream world. That Shakti is called as Maya. It is there common between Ishvara and me. Only thing is my Shakti is limited for a small little dream, lasting a few seconds. Whereas Ishvara's Maya appears to be there for thousands and millions of years. Appears, only appears. Sushupti kale sakale viline. In the sleep state, what happens? There is no more misapprehension, projection, vikshepa happening, but everything is merged into the causal state. This is what is called as the causal body. In the waking state, it is the gross body. In the sleep state, it is the causal body. Many people don't understand what is this casual body you're talking always about. It's not casual body, it is causal body. It is ignorance filled. It is tamoguna. It is non-apprehension of the self. And sukha rupameti. So in the sleep state, what happens? It enjoys, it is overpowered by tamas, and it comes to exist in its form of bliss. This verse explains to us the dream state and the sleep state. Swamaya kalpita loke sukha dukkha bhokta. This is the Jiva Srishti. It is not the Ishvara Srishti, it is Jiva Srishti. The Jiva is projecting. When the sense organs are closed, the mind is in replay mode. I told you that mobile, you're replaying the voice, you're replaying the recording. Whatever you have shot before, you're replaying. That is what is the dream state. It is not the Ishvara Srishti, it is the Jiva Srishti. Subjectively, it is projected. My own private world is being projected. So the Jiva creates because of the Maya Shakti. It is a micro power, and it comes in place when the Nidra Shakti is there. When my mind has gone to sleep, from there it is born. This ignorance is born from that Nidra Shakti. See, I am a waker, I go to sleep. When I go to sleep, what happens? I have got non-apprehension. I have no apprehension about anything, ignorance, total apprehension, total ignorance. From there, the mind projects. The creative power comes from that Maya Shakti, from that Ajnana Avastha, which is the causal body. Jiva then becomes what? Sukha dukkha bhokta. It enjoys. Some people have a happy dream, some people have a bad dream. Both happy and bad dream are only projections, they are only delusions. Jagrat Swapna belongs to the Jiva in two different channels. In channel 1 and channel 2. Channel 1 is the Jagrat, channel 2 is the Swapna. It's like the channel in the TV, you know? What happens in Sushupti? So this is the dream state. In the sleep state, Sakale Viline, everything dissolves. Public world dissolves. Private world dissolves. It's not destroyed, but it goes to unmanifest dormant condition. That is why this is called as causal body. It causes the dream and waking. So we have Pralaya Kala Nidra and Laya Bhoga Nidra. Pralaya Kala Nidra means what? Ishvara goes to sleep. That means the whole universe goes to sleep. And what happens at that time? Jivatma is overwhelmed by ignorance and he has no knowledge at all of the world. Ajnani is a sleeper who is in total ignorance, and Jnani is a person who experiences total knowledge in the sleep state. He says, I am not sleeping, I am awake to my higher nature. That is the difference between jnani and ajnana. In sleep, I know I am as Chit and Sat. I don't know I am Brahman, which is why we say it is a state of ignorance. Ananda is most important, but it is not known. It is overpowered by Tamoguna. Sukha Rupam Eti. This Jivatma enjoys happiness. In sleep, the samsara is not experienced, but in dormant condition. What happens to all the waking state experiences? It lies in a dormant condition. All the knowledge of the waking world, what happens? It is not gone, it is not destroyed, but it is all safely kept in the causal body. The causal body is always there even for the next birth. Because ultimately now you realize it is only the mind's impressions which are coming and going. The mind is projecting the world. Again, it goes back to unmanifest. Again, projection and manifest. So this is how the whole world is experienced. This is a very beautiful Upanishad in very small verses. It can give us the total picture of reality. We have finished 13 verses. You can see the depth of each of these verses. We'll continue with the 14th next week. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachade Purnasya Purnamathaya Purnameva Vasishyade Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. I'll go through the chat box first. How can we overcome the power of Maya to realize our real nature? We can overcome the power of Maya only by the study of Shastra. I keep studying the Upanishads and learn what is the way to get rid of this identification with my mind. Maya means only our mind. Always remember, Maya is a big word. And they say, even in Bhagavad-Gita says, Mama Maya Duratyaya. The person who can cross over my Maya, he becomes free in life. What it means is rising above your mind. I learned to know the higher nature of Atma, the light in which the Maya gets illumined. As we study the Upanishad more and more, you will get the knowledge of this light of Atma, which will help you to cross over the Tamoguna, which causes the delusions. Okay, so the answer to your question is study the Upanishads to get over the power of Maya. Because the light of Atma can burn the Maya. Is it correct to state that Jiva is same as Atma, original consciousness, not Jiva and Paramatma is same? Okay. Yes, you're right. Jiva is the same as the original consciousness. Ultimately, there is no and in Vedanta. Ultimately, there is only one non-dual consciousness alone is the reality. Kaivalyam is the reality. As long as you are identified with any type of Dvaitam, either with the open eyes or with the closed eyes, you are thinking about something, it is Dvaitam. Seeing something is Dvaitam, not the reality. What they say is you are seeing it, therefore it is unreal. You are hearing it, therefore it is unreal. What is reality which is beyond Dvaitam? So, as you clearly understand Vedanta, your Maya will be gone. The clarity of knowledge is very important. Extreme clarity, very clear. You know, that's why we take all these technical aspects, reflected consciousness, original consciousness, reflecting medium, original medium, all that we see. That is all only for the clarity. for the mind to enter into that pure bhava. Of late, I hardly sleep 3 to 4 hours and don't get dreams. What does it indicate? You're becoming pure, that's all. If you don't get dreams, you are happy. I utilize the Brahma Muhurta for a recitation of Gita and meditation. Okay, very good, excellent. You see, sleep is, don't worry about it. Whether you sleep for 4 hours, whether you sleep for 10 hours, sleep is a condition of the mind. It is determined by the vasanas in the mind. Some people sleep some days very longer, some days shorter. Don't worry about, don't have any questions, any doubts about the sleep. Sleep is a condition, it's a natural condition of the mind. Mind will go to sleep whether you like it. It is not a willful activity. It will go to sleep. And the rest of the team, and if you don't get dreams, it's fantastic. You don't have nightmares. People complain because they have dreams. You should not complain, I don't have a dream. Okay, Ram Kumar is asking, Hari Om, okay. Okay, is there any other question among the group at the moment? So these, Chandra.
I like to know, Kaivalya means what? He is alone, is it?
Correct. Kaivalya means I alone am, not that he alone is. See, initially we say the Lord alone is. That is the beginning level.
Okay.
You know, later on we should say, I, the consciousness alone am. That state is called as Kaivalya.
Oh.
Like in Mandukya, you know, when you get rid of all the 3 states, waking, dream, and sleep, you say that is not me. Then the Mandukya says that whatever is that is called as Turiyam, the 4th state. The same 4th state in Kaivalya Upanishad is called as Kaivalya.
Oh.
And the same thing in Taittiriya Upanishad is called as Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma.
Oh.
Same name, it is the same, exactly the same. Whatever your mind is able to perceive as yourself, it is the same self which is being described in very different ways.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, good. There is a question by Akshay here. How to get rid of guilt? We come across some events which can be in our control, but due to our ignorance, we miss some important actions to be taken at the right time. Okay, good question. This is a practical question. See, guilt is something which I should have done something, but I didn't do it. I should have looked after my parents, I didn't look after them. I should have looked after my children, maybe I didn't. I neglected them. These are all thoughts in the mind where you neglect your duty as a mother or a father or something. Now, how to get rid of this guilt? Good question. The best way to say is, I was under delusion. Delusion is a part of Tamo Guna. My mind had that Tamo Guna at the time of guilt. It is the nature of the mind. I am not that. Again and again emphasize in your own mind, I am the Sakshi of Tamo Guna. I am not the Tamo Guna, which is Prakriti. Tamo Guna is a cause of delusion. Delusion is a cause of wrong actions, whether it is all types of wrong actions is caused by delusion. And delusion is nothing but Tamo Guna, nothing else but tamas, which is Maya. One of the 3 strands of Maya is tamas. Don't feel guilty at all in life for doing and not doing something. Okay, so it is a state of mind in which the mind was deluded. Full stop, that's it. That is what the Upanishad teaches us. That is not your real nature. I am the pure witness of that state. Again and again, like I said, right in the beginning of the talk, I said, learn to practice to say, I am the
Yourself.
yourself. I am the Sakshi. I am the Sakshi. Let your mind repeat this. Maybe remember this fact. It is a fact of life. It is a fact of this whole universe. That is what the Upanishad is screaming and telling us. You are that. Tattvamasi, Tattvamasi. You are that. You're not the body. You're not the mind. The moment you learn to appreciate that truth, the more you appreciate, the more your mind will settle down and will calm down. See, all our minds are projecting today, all due to delusion, nothing else. I will be happy future. After next week, when I do this job, I'll get more money and I'll do this. I will be happy. But actually, you will not be happy as such. It will be only comfort only. Okay, you get money, you will, but that is not happiness. Happiness is your nature. This is what Bhagavad-Gita Upanishad tells us, teaches us. It is your nature. Taittiriya Upanishad says this. Kaivalya Upanishad says this. Ultimately, my nature is that pure self. Kaivalya. Okay, so this question of yours is answered because this is a shastric answer. This is how, through knowledge of Atma, you can, and this is the best method. All other Laukika methods, people will say, go and chant this and go and, you see, those are all temporary measures. Go and see a movie, you'll forget about all your problems. These are all temporary measures. They are not the ultimate stroke by which, it's not the ultimate axe by which you cut that completely. The root is gone. The root goes away only with Atma Jnana and abiding in that Atma. Not just saying there is some Atma somewhere. Saying that that Atma is me. And this, whatever I'm facing as a guilt, and this is all temporary, it will go away. Worst comes to us, this body anyway will go away. So where is the question of guilt and this and that? It just goes away. So don't worry about it. Akshay, it's a very good question, but the knowledge is very important. Okay, I hope you're clear.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
I just have a question to what you said in terms of it's a temporary thing, it's body, but wouldn't guilt be part of the subtle body?
Yes, it is a part of the subtle body. That's what I
So
meant. It's in the mind.
So that'll carry forward in the next life also.
It will carry, but not when you have the knowledge of Atma. When you have already burnt up your subtle body in this birth, there is no more carrying over. You see, you
so
are.
So whatever, say for example, wrong knowledge I have at this point of time, that will get burnt up, that gets corrected.
Yes,
it goes off.
The knowledge, the right knowledge will correct that wrong knowledge.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, Shekharji, but
Yeah,
yes, but we will have to bear the consequences nonetheless, right, of certain actions.
Yes, the jiva will bear, not Atma. The jiva, which is identified with that mind, will bear the consequences of the bad actions in this birth. But the same jiva will learn how to come out of those identification of holding on to that mind as real me. See, that is where the small subtle difference is there between the jnani and ajnani. You see, okay, you have done some papam or some bad action you have done. You will definitely get the result, no doubt. When the result comes, how do you take that? Do you take it very strongly because you're still ajnani, or you take that result when it comes as a jnani? That is the difference. A jnani has the knowledge now to face when the result comes, theek hai, okay, it has come, it will go away. That he will be able to take care. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Okay, so what I'm saying is the jnani will be able to take care of the result of those actions in a different way than an ajnani. Ajnani will keep blaming himself, Oh, why did I do this? Why did I do this? What happened? Why did I commit this? Why did I commit this? Because of the practice of saying, I am the sakshi of my mind, that ajnani becomes a jnani. The thoughts, when they arise, they will not remain for a long time. For ajnani, it remains for a long time. The feeling of guilt remains for a longer duration for ajnani. But for ajnani, it burns. The moment that guilt thought comes, he burns it. That is what is called as the burning power of this knowledge. The fire. Just now we saw that verse. Is it clear, Preeti?
Yes, Shikharji, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm studying something else called family constellations right now.
Yeah.
And in that, what they talk about is also a family conscience.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but when we say about one consciousness and that family conscience, I'm not being able to reconcile the two. Though I am experiencing in terms of, I am seeing how the family conscience works and how certain like the genetic traits or many subtle body traits are passed on from generation to generation.
Yeah.
They are carried in the body. So how do I reconcile this? And what is the view of the Upanishads on this thing?
See, Upanishad has got only one view. And that view is, there is only one consciousness. You see, because you don't know, you don't have the full knowledge of that one consciousness, your mind gets deluded into all these other areas. It is a delusion of the mind. The mind thinks there is the consciousness is split into different parts. The consciousness is there is another small. See, at a macro level, yes, there are, when you see practically speaking, at the Vyavaharika level, you will find there is a consciousness in the family, consciousness in the society, consciousness in the country, consciousness in the region, consciousness in the whole world.
Yes.
But that is Vyavaharika level. It is Vyavaharika Satyam. It is transactional reality. It is not the absolute reality. Vedanta talks about absolute reality. Okay, you feel this consciousness, but is it really there? Is it really there at the highest level?
So what you're saying is when, but my question is when my Vyavaharika life will also, my response to the Vyavaharika life will be much more calmer when I am understanding the Upanishads.
Yes, that's correct.
That's the only difference.
That is the difference. The moment you get that, you see, it is not only that you hear about consciousness, but your mind should be able to have a peep into that consciousness. What I mean is, you should be able to realize that truth. Then it will, then only you will be able to face your Vyavaharika world in a different way.
Okay.
As long as this consciousness remains as a paroksha jnanam, there will be no difference between you and an ajnani.
Okay. And aporoksha jnana means my identification with the body and the mind.
I am that consciousness in which the whole universe is coming and going. You see, that's a huge shift in paradigm shift in our entire view of life. And that is what is going to be repeated in the 19th mantra of this Upanishad. Mayeva sakalam jatam, may sarvam pratishtitam. See, the mind, it is the growth of the mind. The growth of the mind is called as purity of mind. The more I listen, the more I get the knowledge. That knowledge purifies the doubts, and the doubts become less and less. And therefore, I am the same mind which was having the doubts now turns its attention to what the Upanishad is trying to reveal, and it will experience that.
Okay. Okay. So what is happening is, as a result of this, there's a lot of dissonance with whatever else is there in the world.
That's correct. See,
Yeah,
dissonance, yes. See, dissonance is always caused in duality. The more you you take that duality to be real, then it will definitely cause turbulences in your mind. It will cause doubts. There's no end to that, you know.
What I mean by that is, like, say, when I interact with the world, I find it quite like stupid at many ways. You know, I'm using a very harsh word, but
but you're right. See,
yeah.
That's why you when you feel that you are reacting in a different way, and you feel that it is not the right way, that is what is called as realization.
Okay.
I know myself. That's all. The world may think that I am stupid, but then I am now calm and quiet.
Yes, yes, yes.
See, the world may think that I've become stupid, I'm not acting, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. But in my heart, I know what my truth is.
Yeah, yeah.
I am happy.
Yeah, the contentment is there.
The contentment is in me. The fulfillment is in me. I do not care what the world thinks about me. See, that is the difference.
Yes, yes, yes.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, if there are no other questions, we'll meet next week, and then we'll go into the other mantras of this beautiful Upanishad. We have about 10-11 mantras left, and each of these mantras are they're all, they're very powerful mantras. Read them again, listen to them again, form your own notes about what you have learned. Then you will see a lot of growth in you. Okay, thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Sir.
Thank you. Hari Om.